Good afternoon. So what you have here is something which is so integrally part of our life. That's the web and what it did to us, all the things that the web has been bringing to us. And as brand and marketing people, it has changed whatever we've been doing. And we just heard the panel discussing all the problems that social media has been bringing in our lives. So I'm going to be talking about something which is related to that. It's about people and how people are changing in their interactions with brands and how brands do need to look at their interaction with people, and that's subject of community commerce. We all know about e-commerce. Anybody here doesn't buy online? I'm sure everybody does. We have somebody waving a hand. And how many of you have bought on Instagram? Anybody buying on Instagram? Yeah. So social commerce is happening. So from websites, we moved to, having brands selling you things on social channels, Instagram, and I believe TikTok is something very happening. We got it banned in India because it was too intrusive. But I guess people are enjoying e-commerce on TikTok. But is that community commerce? Is that something, which we can relate to? Social media, of course, has been there for a very long time now. And brands have been quick on the uptake. We all have been building, so to say, communities on social media. And then came the influencers, and we started using the influencers to start talking to consumers and create content and enable commerce. But is that community commerce? The problem is that the influencers we work with are changing. And that's changing the way we deal with social media, we deal with the internet, we deal with each other. And that's what is creating this concept called community commerce. And I'll explain that. Well, this is from a research report, and they said community commerce, this is by TikTok actually. And they said community commerce is the notion of entertaining, compelling content. And that just happens to feature brands. So this is about influencers and placement of products by the influencers and people talking about products. And then there's another theory which says that a lot of people have been buying on social platforms. And I do a lot of shopping on Instagram. It's fun, and you really get to see products up close. But that's not what is really happening out there. Because both of these things are missing is community. The first is about content. The second is about finding products that you like. But it's not about the involvement of the community. And what does that mean? That both of them don't have the trust factor. Trust is something very integral to all of us, and especially coming from where we are with the pandemic just about behind us. And during the pandemic, we started communicating a lot with people because we really didn't know what to do. So we communed. We were all shut in our houses, and the only way was to talk to people and figure out who's safe, what to do, how to get out, how to get food. And that's the trust of the community which drove us to survive the pandemic. And this trust that comes in a community is what is going to be key for a brand as you move forward in the clutter of the web and the marketplaces and the online systems, If you buy on Amazon, the first thing you go and look for is how many stars and the ratings the product has. You read the reviews because that sort of gives you a feeling of trust about the product because you don't know who's selling it. And this concept is leading to this new influencers in the communities that we belong to. And that's what is changing the brand equation, and it's changing the way you are all going to be buying products, So when you buy from people that you know, your neighborhood grocer, when you go to his shop, you trust that person. So you don't have a problem buying that. But you see a product on Instagram, somebody is talking about it, somebody you don't know, is a micro-influencer, which all of us have been using in our brand marketing, a lot. So it's interesting, but how much of it really converts into sale, into commerce, into business, So there's this wave about using influencers and content. But that's not how community commerce works. Here's an example about a community which came up in India some years back, run by a woman. And she was in Delhi, and she started creating the little black book of Delhi, of things which women need to connect with, food, home decor, makeup, beauty. And she started writing, and she got more people to write, and they discovered things. And soon it grew, and they made community and had, today it's millions of women on that platform. And people trusted this. And that's when they added e-commerce, That's very recent. So you build the community, you find people who are like-minded, who are thinking the same thing. So we all know in performance marketing, this whole thing about contextual marketing, And that's the context here. You have all these people setting up shop outside in the coffee area. And if these people, you see these stalls in a mall, you probably won't even look at them because it's out of place. But here you are in a marketing conference, so you see somebody talking about marketing outside, you go and talk to them. So they are using this community of us people here in this room to do commerce, And that's the concept we are talking about here. This is another great company, Baby Chakra, started by a young girl about parenting. She wanted to learn baby names. And she searched and she didn't find, so she started talking to people and putting that online, and soon it became a big parenting community. And brands started saying, oh, I want to be part of this community and talk to them and put my products out there and be part of the conversation. And it took them 10 years. Over 10 years, now it's actually a major e-commerce company, selling millions and millions of baby products, So community, and commerce, the community comes first because it's about people who are talking the same thing, who have the shared passion, who have the same beliefs, who have the same interests, And that's what, as a brand, we need to think. How do we work on that? So the change which this is bringing is that, the key to success for your brand, for your business, is, your expertise, the communities that you're working with, and the interests of the people. It's not about, just how much capability you have, or the products you have, or the supply chain you've built, and the delivery systems you've built. You know, it's something which is actually creating change in how some brands are creating marketplaces. This is an example of a company in the US, Poshmark. You know, they sell recycled high-end fashion. This 10-year-old company went NASDAQ last year. And they started by, getting people to join communities. Somebody likes red fashion, somebody likes, leather, somebody likes something. So they got people together, women who started sharing their closets. What do I wear? And they talked about that in a social manner and created a whole big community. And they even did offline events of all these women called posh parties. And then, you know, like this is best in home posh party. And then they started selling the products which these people had. So my closet, and people created closets and started putting them, talking about fashion, about things that they loved, and people who had similar tastes joined that closet, and that's when the shopping started happening. The wonderful idea to put people together and have them bring together their shared interest, shared thoughts, and then spark the conversation and change it towards selling. So what we're talking about here is that we just talked about inclusion, and a city like Dubai with so much diversity of population. So marketing has to be about breaking your brand into different communities. People who have shared interest. It doesn't have to be about ethnicity, about where you come from, but about shared passions and beliefs. And every brand can do that. So how do you do it? We all have been doing this thing about social commerce. I mean, we talked about creating followers, and we spend an inordinate amount of time on creating followers for our brands on social media. The problem is it's a one-way dialogue. So you build a follower base and then you communicate to them. But that's not what a community is about. A community is about participation. And that can't be with followers. That has to be about building communities. When the people start talking to each other, and you are facilitating that conversation as a brand and helping them engage, and that's what consumers appreciate. And that's a platform you need to create. So, this invisible connection that binds people who are having the same thoughts, the same beliefs, is something which all of us need to get very real to and start working on building these communities around our brands. This can happen online, this can happen offline, but it's about creating that engagement, that participation, so that people come together. And it's not about that they all like your brand. It's all about that they like, something together, and they want to do things together. We all love to do that, and that's why you have clubs and things, and we go there, and we want to be with people. We are all here in a marketing conference because we all love marketing, and that's why we are all here. So this is something, brands need to get more and more conscious. You all know about the Facebook groups and the LinkedIn groups. But how much time do we spend on cultivating them and creating audiences? People have amazing WhatsApp groups, on WhatsApp, and there's so much conversation which happens in real time there. But how do you get to become part of that? And do we really use them as part of our marketing strategies and thinking through them and allocating budgets and resources that, hey, I want, how many of us have a WhatsApp community manager? I don't think any of us have, although we WhatsApp all the time. So that's the new reality about these micro communities instead of micro influencers, is the notion that we have to get real to and start thinking that how this will change. This is a brand in India called Sugar Cosmetics, So they've done an amazing work where you see on their homepage is about people sharing their makeup tips, It's their users. So they've been able to have this community of users who really talk about, how to do the best makeup instead of hiring influencers and showcasing, And that makes them huge, They're a unicorn company in just 3 years, And it's amazing the way they've been able to build this community of women who believe in this, So what do we need to do? And how do we need to look at this community, program, community commerce, as I'm talking about? We've all spent a lot of money on our brands, ATL, BTL, performance marketing, digital marketing, The problem is that eventually we all know that there's only a limit to what it can achieve. And that's only a percentage, But when you spark real conversations with people, dialogues, instead of advertising, instead of push or pull, whatever strategy you're trying to do with your brand, it's about getting people together. So, we all know Red Bull. So they have an amazing community. That's how they open up, It's about just people wanting to do things differently, That's Red Bull. And it's all about achievement. It's about, and that's the brand. And then there's Sephora, They have this, just look at that number. I think it's 5 million people there. Brilliant, And that's what makes Sephora the brand that it is. The participation and the dialogue that they're trying to build, with the people who love being beautiful, In India, we all know about Harley. So Royal Enfield, a brand from India, they've built an amazing community now about people who love, being a little adventurous and outdoor, and they're doing a great job. And this brand, which had almost died some time back, is now live, and it's actually becoming a cult and a fashion symbol. It took them a decade to transform themselves from a company which was almost bankrupt to, I think they are very, very valuable, and they made a pitch to buy Harley Davidson, And that's amazing for a small company in India, And just on the power of community. And this bike is now a fashion symbol. And in India, I see young people stop buying the Yamahas and the Suzukis and all the fancy bikes and the Ducatis, and they buy these amazing, heavy, roadster kind of bikes, which is the Royal Enfield, It's called Bullet locally in the community, So everybody wants a Bullet. So this is the path to make sure that it's part of your brand strategy, and you need to allocate people. You need to have a community manager in your company, in your brand, because if somebody is owning it, then something happens. When nobody owns the process, there's no process, So it cannot be an off and on activity. It has to be a dedicated activity of putting resources. And believe me, you don't need to put a lot of money, but you need to put time and resources behind building community, because it's all about dialogue. It's about participation, It's about talking with the customers. Priyanka talked about that amazing example of the company which reverted back. That's because they have somebody in their brand system who is looking at ensuring about closing the loop. It's about that focus on consumers and being participative and listening to them and talking to them. And that's, what you will need to do with each of your brands is to convert your customers into a community. When they talk to each other, they grow stronger about your brand, because it's no longer about them buying something. It's about them being part of something which is being experienced by so many other people. And that's what reinforces the belief in your brand, because it's participative. So it's part of me. It's something I am part of. And that's what really builds that brand love. It's not great advertising. It's not amazing videos. It's not spending a lot of money. It's more about giving people a chance to own your brand and talk about it, and being part of it. And because it's something which is part of our lives, that's why it's more precious. And that's what community commerce is going to be all about, which is far beyond digital, and it's far beyond social media. Those then just become the tools. It's about people. And we all know that for a brand, the most important thing is people. We just want to communicate and talk to people all the time as a brand. And that's why community commerce is going to be an important and should be an important part of your brand strategy. So that's it. That's me. And thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I brought some thoughts to your mind, and I hope you are able to do something with your brands or with your clients with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that great presentation. We might have time for one or two questions in the audience if anybody wants to ask something. There we go. I love the Royal Enfield. I had a classic 500. Great bike. Yeah, fantastic.
In an agency, client servicing is a lot like community servicing that a brand does. And one of the very common problems that we face is a lack of communication or communication gaps that an agency or people in an agency have with the clients. Expectations are not met or discussions are not on the same level. So how do we deal with this on a day-to-day basis? Because it drains out all our energy.
Yeah. I think it's about participation. It's about, you use the word client. And in my company, you're in a small boutique company, we consult. So I make sure that, we never use the word agency and client. It's my brand, it's our brand, it's our company, it's our product. All people in the company are made sure that they visit. So even if you're a graphic designer, you will still go to the client's office and be part of discussions and experience the products firsthand, visit the factory or showroom or whatever it is. So I want everybody to be part of that system, right, of that process. So they all, feel that it's something very valuable and they're involved with that process. All my clients know all my people by name. Everybody can talk to anybody. Designers can talk to the client and, just understand if they're stuck with something. So the Chinese whisper, the whole process of somebody saying something and somebody listening and then handing it over and the next, kind of breaks down. And everybody is in a participative discussion because it's their work. It's a joint effort, and that builds a great culture. And people love that, and I think that's about building brand communities. So try that out.
Great. Thank you so much, Manoj. I think if you have any more questions, we can catch up with you over lunch. Sure. Let's break for lunch because we're a little bit over time.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manoj. That was great chat.